Miami veterans report for training camp on July 25th at Baptist Health Training Facility in Davie as the Dolphins prepare for a shot at just their second winning season since 2008. We'll find out how much pressure Adam Gase is dealing with, whether Ryan Tannehill can make a difference, and much more as we preview training camp for the Miami Dolphins by going one-on-one with Alan Pupar, Miami Dolphins lead writer at Dolphins.com, on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. It's Thursday, June 28th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning into the OFN Meeting Room as we preview NFL training camps for the 2018 season. And we continue that today with Miami Dolphins lead writer at Dolphins.com, Alan Pupar. Alan, thanks for helping us talk Miami Dolphins football today.
Oh, absolutely, Greg. Anytime.
All right. So let's get into it. By the way, before we get into it, how long have you been covering the Dolphins for?
On and off. The first Dolphin game I ever covered was 1985, a game against the Jets where the Dolphins won in the last minute on a Marino to Duper touchdown pass on a full-time basis since 1989. It's been a while.
Yeah. I figured, with the Jets, pretty much any game ended like that, right? So I know I'm a Jet fan, so
there you
don't
go.
hold it against me.
Crazy game at the Orange Bowl.
I remember, the only game I ever went to in Miami on the field was the game where Chad Cascadden picked off Marino for a touchdown late. And I remember Belichick was coaching for the Jets at the time as an assistant. So it was So I remember those things stick out as well. It's always Jets Miami if you're a Jet or if you cover the Jets or Miami. Those things stick out for you. All right.
Absolutely. Yep.
So let's go ahead and talk about this training camp that's coming up in a short while for the Dolphins. First of all, the offseason. You look at the losses, Pouncey, Sue, Landry. They're right now looking like maybe a rookie kicker could be out there. So is it as worrisome as it should be, or do you think that the changes that they're making could actually benefit them as early as this season?
No question about it. And here's the thing. It's on the surface. Yeah, there was a lot of star power that went out of the building with the three guys you just mentioned. But here's the thing, and Ndamukong Suh was very, very productive in his time with the Dolphins. There's absolutely no question about that. The one thing is he played an inordinate amount of snaps for a defensive tackle, and the preference that they're looking for this year is to go to more of a full rotation system with four guys pretty much playing 50% of the snaps each. Mike Pouncey's had hip issues, very well documented. Still a very good player, but he's not quite the player he once was in his career. And Jarvis Landry has been highly, highly, highly productive in terms of the number of catches, but the truth is he averaged 8.6 yards. I think the exact number was last year.
That's true.
So again, I think the impact of the guys who left is not going to be as significant as the names. If you just look at these are three big names, and I understand they're three big names who are multiple Pro Bowl players. But I think it's an overreaction to say, "Oh my God, the sky has fallen" because of the big names they lost. The truth is, this is a much more balanced, much deeper team this year than it was last year. And the biggest key of all is you're looking at a quarterback situation where you have a guy back who was on a roll when he got injured in December 2016, replacing a guy whose signing last year turned out to be a complete disaster.
And you know what? Let's start actually before we get into the players. I want to start with the coaching staff and Gase because I was surprised. I was doing one of the shows last year, and I mentioned somebody who was down in Florida, and I told him how much I really thought that Gase was doing a good job. And he said, well, there's some talk about whether or not that's the case or if his job is on the line. Not necessarily last year, but maybe he's got a short leash after a bad season. And I just didn't feel that way. mean, you look, as a Jet fan, I used to live in Florida for 20 years, so I feel I got a decent pulse on what's going on there and what has happened over a long run, as you know. And I just said it at the Open. It's been a long time since this team has really only one playoff season in such a long time. So I know that they've had a lot of issues there, especially at the coaching position. But I have a good feeling about Gaze. What's the atmosphere as far as in the front office with Gaze, and then say with the fans?
Yeah, no, I think I can tell you the front office is very high on him as a coach, and they have every reason to be. I mean, look what he did with that team the first year he took over. They had gone through a nightmarish season in 2015. He comes in with a team that was not necessarily that different in terms of personnel, and they found a way to pull out wins in every conceivable fashion late in games in that 2016 season. They made the playoffs, lo and behold.
Yeah.
And last year was just a nightmare from start to finish, starting with the injury to Tannehill. You had a situation with Lawrence Timmons. You have the hurricane that messes up the schedule.
Yep.
The Jay Cutler signing, which absolutely didn't pan out. They obviously didn't read him right in terms of his commitment to the game and what he was going to be able to do. But doesn't change the fact that, and then there were issues down the stretch as well. Doesn't change the fact that the guy knows how to coach. I mean, there's no question about that. I think I've seen some places where they're suggesting that he could be in trouble. I'm not buying that for a second. I think he's very solid. Okay. Obviously, the hope is that things get turned around this year.
Sure.
But I don't think anybody's questioning his ability as a coach.
Talent-wise, because there is, maybe not pressure for a playoff run. I mean, as long as they are better than last year, show improvement, that's what they're looking for, right? Because, again, it's possible. Maybe they could if Tannehill plays well and he's healthy. That I don't think there's any question. We've seen the last 2 years, especially in the AFC. You've been able to slip in to that playoff spot and not necessarily be a great Super Bowl contender. So that could happen. But that's something that you believe it would be true that Gaze is. It's not like he needs to be in the playoffs to hold on to his job, right?
Correct. No, I most definitely believe that. I obviously they want to see some progress and see a better showing than last year. But I don't. There's the idea that it would be a playoff or bust season for the Dolphins is ridiculous.
All right, let's. By the way, new offensive coordinator. So Gaze used to coach with Dowell Lagans in Chicago. Talk about how this is going to influence the offense, even though Gaze, of course, has been running the offense as well.
Well, that's the thing. So I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. It's not like it would be for another team where the offensive coordinator really was in charge of the offense. I mean, Adam Gase is the de facto offensive coordinator of this team.
Yep.
Dowell Lagans is just somebody who's going to help him get his message through and get everything implemented the way he wants it, where there's a complete understanding between the two guys of how Gase wants things done, and it just streamlines everything there. But again, this is Adam Gase's offense.
Okay, let's start with the offense, and as far as personnel is concerned, and again, we know about Tannehill. He's got to be healthy, so let's get him on the field first before we really start talking about him and his progress and all that other stuff. Osweiler's is definitely the number 2, or does Fales have an opportunity to win that job, and Petty's also in camp?
Well, no, David Fales not only has an opportunity to win that job, but based on everything we saw in the spring from the practices that were open to the media, David Fales is in the lead for that job. In fact, it was pronounced enough that one of the questions asked to Adam Gase on the last day of the off-season program was basically, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was something along the lines of, it basically fails as he nailed down the number 2 job. So that shows you how much ahead he looks of the other 2 guys heading into training camp. Fales is a guy that Gase had in Chicago.
Yep.
When he was the offensive coordinator over there. He's always spoken very highly of him. They got him in a game in the game last season against Buffalo, where he had his moments, and Gase spoke glowingly of what Fales did in that game after he came in for Cutler after, I think it was maybe the first series. So you combine everything. Again, I would say that right now fails, is a very, very, very solid favorite for that number 2 job.
Yeah, interesting because I remember when I watched him in college, I mentioned that when we were going over the draft, and I had mentioned that I thought he would be an interesting developmental quarterback. I just liked what I saw and how he played at college. He especially at a smaller type school. I thought that he had potential, and so it's to me, it's not a surprise that he's put himself in a position to possibly be a really strong number 2 quarterback in this league, and who knows, if he can spot start a starter every once in a while, that would be a great relief, especially for someone like Tannehill if he misses a few games here and there. So that's nice to hear. And Osweiler, does he make the team? By the way, if he's not the number 2.
That's a great question. I mean, there's not much of a financial investment from the Dolphins standpoint, so they wouldn't keep him just for that reason. Given the nature of the league nowadays, tough question. Very, very tough call.
Okay.
I'd call that a 50-50 if he's going to be the number 3 guy.
And it also probably depends on whether or not Bryce Petty shows anything, too.
Correct. I mean,
okay.
The guy's got the physical ability. It just hasn't clicked for him in the NFL so far, and then the idea is to try to do that very quickly here with the Dolphins.
All right, running back Frank Gore is in town, so interesting that he makes it back to his home area there. And Kenyon Drake, who took over as the lead role late last season, and then Balaj, the rookie. So is this a competition, a 3-man competition? Is that how they're going to go into camp?
If you're talking for starting jobs,
yeah.
I wouldn't put Balaj in that group.
Okay.
It would be between Gore and Drake.
Okay.
And I would also suggest that whoever starts isn't necessarily that significant. I would get the feeling that Gore and Drake are going to get a lot of playing time, both of them. I think Balaj might get sprinkled in here and there, especially if he shows he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But it's going to be Gore and Drake. Or Drake and Gore, could go either way, but they have a nice luxury here because Gore's a proven commodity, and Drake looked really, really good last year after Ajayi was traded and Damian Williams was hurt.
Yeah, I think he's definitely an underrated player to keep an eye on, Drake, and because of the fact that maybe not a lot of people paid attention to what was going on in Miami when he was starting second half of last season, he's an interesting under-the-radar player to keep an eye on. But as far as Balaj, very talented college kid. So are the Dolphins very happy from what they've seen so far, from what you've seen so far? Is he ever going to have the chance to be a number 1? Do you think he has what it takes for what you've seen? I know it's very hard at this point before even camp, pads and helmet. What do you think?
Yeah, it's impossible for me to tell you that because they do so little as far as the running game is concerned in the spring because of no pads, no contact. He certainly does look like he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's big. He's a big back. He's got great size. But, I mean, training camp's going to be the time when we see what kind of wiggle he's got, how he sees holes, and all that good stuff. What
about Greg Howell? He seems like an intriguing rookie free agent. You think? Again, I don't know if he'd be able to make the team or not. But and have you noticed anything from him yet at rookie minicamp?
No, I mean he's got the look. I mean he's got a nice bulky back, but you get 3 pretty solid guys there set with Gore, Drake, and Balaj.
Sure.
You got Sonoris Perry, who was on the roster last year and got some carries at some point late in the season, and also plays on special teams. And that's assuming the Dolphins even keep 4 running backs on the 53. So I think Howell does have promise, got some ability, but he's going to have a tough time making the 53. He could be somebody who doesn't make the 53 but winds up on the practice squad if nobody else picks him up. But, it's going to be tough for him to make the 53.
All right, let's go to tight ends and 2 big picks in the draft. Gesicki and Smythe come in from Notre Dame. Smythe seems to be a little bit more well-rounded, more complete tight end. But, of course, Gesicki has got incredible athletic ability. I got to believe that the Dolphins are pretty excited about the depth of this unit and, of course, the 2 rookies.
Correct. No, they have a lot of bodies because they also have A.J. Derby, who they claimed off waivers last year from Denver, who's somebody that showed well in the short time, former quarterback at Arkansas, who's got very good pass-catching skills. And they got Marquise Gray, who's a good all-around guy who's been with the team for 3 years, actually the longest tenured guy at the position. They do have numbers there. The hope is that Gesicki gives them that big play down the field threat at tight end that they were hoping they'd get from Julius Thomas last year, which didn't pan out, that they were hoping they'd get from Jordan Cameron when they picked him up from the Browns a few years back, which also didn't pan out. It's certainly something that's been missing from this Dolphin offense, and if Gesicki can be the guy to make a difference, even if it's only in the red zone with his height and his jumping ability, that's a big bonus for that offense.
All right, wide receivers, and again, no Landry, but this you had Stills, Parker, and Landry last year, which was a good trio. So you still have Stills and Parker, and then you bring in Amendola, which is a really nice signing. Albert Wilson also comes in. You still have Carew and Grant, even though Grant pretty much he's a weapon on special teams more than anything. So this, even without Landry, this is still a very solid unit. Is Parker ready? Do you think Parker is ready to take a step up? Does he still have what it takes from what you've seen to be a even better, more impact player as far as what the Dolphins are looking at?
Oh, he's always had it. I mean, he's always had everything he needs. The only thing he needs is to stay healthy and avoid those problematic injuries that have slowed him down and it cost him practice time and kept him out of games. That's been the issue with him. But you see him practice, or you see him sometimes in games when he's fully healthy. I mean, that guy got Pro Bowl wide receiver written all over him. I mean, he's tall, he can make the catches, he's got good speed. So there's, again, we won't know this. I mean, he did everything he needed to do in the spring. Coaches were talking about how he was always in the building doing everything he needed to do to prepare himself as best as he could. But, again, we won't know until September and the games start and if he can avoid those injuries, but he's got the potential to put up big numbers. There's no question about it.
All right, what about Carew? I mean, Carew was a third-round draft pick, and I'm a Rutgers fan. I'm from Jersey originally, so I followed his career very closely. Was a huge receiver for Rutgers, so I know how talented he is. He hasn't taken off yet. But again, there have been issues with the quarterback situation, with the injuries and such. Does he still is he running out of time to validate that third-round pick status? Is there any particular reason why he hasn't taken off yet?
It's getting there. Well, early on, one of his issues is he didn't necessarily excel on special teams. He actually lost playing time his rookie year to an undrafted free agent, Rashawn Scott. He missed the spring this year, had a minor knee issue. He's supposed to be ready for the start of training camp. The problem Carew is going to run into is the Dolphins have a lot of numbers at wide receiver. You mentioned Stills, Parker, Amendola, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant. I know you talked about his special teams, but he also made some plays at receiver toward the end of last year. He took like a really short slant against Kansas City, I think next to last week of the season last year, and turned it into like a 50-yard touchdown.
Yep.
He got explosive speed. On top of that, they have Isaiah Ford, who was the seventh-round pick last year, who missed his rookie season with a knee injury, who looked pretty good in the spring. That's 6 right there.
Yeah.
You know the Dolphins are not keeping 7. They might not even keep 6. If they keep 5, one would think that the first 5 I mentioned are going to be the 5. If they keep 6, could come down to Isaiah Ford or Carew, but no question this is a big training camp for him. He's got to show significant improvement if he wants to stick around.
Okay. Let's.
And sorry to tell you that as a Rutgers fan.
It's okay. I mean, hey, I'm used to it. That's all right. Let's go to the offensive line, and this is this the biggest question? I mean, they did add Sitton, which is a nice free agent addition. Looks like the tackles positions are set. The whole Kilgore thing was very strange in the offseason. I got very confused when I was reading about him, and it seemed like he was first of all, he was there, and then he was here, and then he was there. I got confused. I had to double and triple check exactly where he was. But he's with the Dolphins now. But the depth also does seem like on paper it's a bit of an issue. And are they set at right guard?
And I would tell you this, and I'm not playing like fan man over here, but I would tell you the offensive line is shaping up more promisingly than it has in a lot of years.
Okay.
They are set at right guard right now because they anointed Jesse Davis, who last year started games at right guard, left guard, and right tackle. They came into the spring, told him, this is your job at right guard. Go on, take it, run with it. He's big body, very strong. I think he's got a really good future at guard, even though he didn't play poorly at tackle either, but he's got a really good future at guard. Jeff Sitton's a 4-time Pro Bowl guy at left guard.
Mm-hmm.
Kilgore had, by all accounts, a pretty solid season with San Francisco last year. And then you got the two tackles who are the key to the offensive line because Jawan James missed half the year last year with a nasty hamstring injury. And you got Laramie Tunsil, who, by his own admission, did not have a great year at tackle last year after playing guard as a rookie. So the key for this offense, and they do have depth. They have Ted Larson, who's a longtime NFL starter to back up at all three interior positions. They have Sam Young, who's done really good work as a backup at tackle. And they have this kid, Eric Smith, who they like a lot, who was a rookie free agent last year, was another tackle. But the key is going to be James and Tunsil. They're two former first-round picks. The Dolphins committed to the fifth-year option with a price tag of upwards of $9 million on James, so they obviously think he can get the job done.
Yep.
And then Tunsil is a former first-round pick of a couple of years ago. He came in touted as one of the best prospects on talent alone in that 2016 draft. This is a time for him to pick up his game, and if those two do that, you have the makings of a very good offensive line, which would be a very, very welcome addition to this Dolphin offense.
Yes, you keep Tannehill healthy. We've talked about the receivers, and of course the running backs are there. That leaves the offensive line, so that would be a major boost to this offense. Let's talk about defense and the defensive line. Boy, even though you lose Sue, there's talent there. I mean, you have Quinn, which is a big time player. Not comfortable, I'm sure, last year in the 3-4. He comes to the Dolphins back where he needs to play outside on the edge in the 4-3. And then when you can turn to depth guys like Hayes and Branch, that's huge. And then you still have the first-round pick from last year, Hayes. So I guess Hayes is the heir apparent for Wake. So this looks like still a very strong front.
Yeah, well, at defensive end, if anything, they have too many bodies. I mean, they have five guys. I mean, because we're looking at this, okay. I mean, how does Charles Harris get his playing time?
Yeah,
the first round pick just last year, and a key move in the offseason, though. I mean, obviously the trade for Quinn stands out, but re-signing Hayes was big because he was really good last year before he got hurt. He was the team's best run defender, and he was getting some pressure on the quarterback in passing situations. So that was a really nice pickup. So, I mean, with those five guys, there's no reason that position wouldn't be really, really good. Inside, as I mentioned, you're going to have a rotation with four guys. Right now, I'd probably tell you it looks like Jordan Phillips, Devon Gottschall, Akeem Spence, who was a really good under-the-radar move for the Dolphins in the offseason when they got him for a conditional seventh-round pick from Detroit, which basically for nothing. And then Vincent Taylor, another second-year player. Ideally, obviously you don't have Sue in there, so somebody's going to come up with plays, but Gottschall made his share of plays last year. Jordan Phillips did as well, and the guy's got loads of ability. It was a little bit more consistent last year than he'd been his first couple of years, and the hope is he just takes another step forward.
Yeah, that's important. You got the extra playing time now with Sugan, so maybe added confidence will be what he needs. Where's Wake right now in his career? You've seen him throughout his career. So where is he now compared to a couple of years ago? How much time do you think he has left as an elite player? How close is he still to an elite player?
Oh, he's a difference maker as a pass rush. I mean, he reached double digits in sacks last year again. I mean, I saw him in the spring when he came out for his media session, and I'm looking at his arms, and it's like, my Lord, this guy's put together. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of his fanatical regimen.
Yeah.
I mean, never has anything whatsoever that's not totally healthy or organic in his body. I mean, he is put together, which is what has allowed him to still be effective at 35. Now he's 36. No, I mean the Dolphins are it's interesting because in 2016 he was coming off the Achilles, and the Dolphins began the season by monitoring his playing time. He came off the bench for the first four games, and then after that fourth game, they decided, you know what, let him go in there and start and do his thing. And coincidence or not, that's when the Dolphins happened to start making their run.
Sure.
And he could handle the workload. They don't need to play him 50, 60
No.
snaps because they have so much depth at defensive end, so they can use him judiciously, and there's no reason why he won't produce again and get his anywhere from 8 to 12 sacks.
And Charles, and I got to believe he's a great teacher as well for Charles Harris. So very successful rookie season for Harris, correct?
Not statistically speaking. I know Adam Gase was very quick to point out it several times that he didn't want to get hung up on numbers because there were several times when Harris did get pressure but couldn't quite reach the quarterback. It probably wasn't what he would have hoped for, but he didn't get a ton of playing time necessarily, and there were a couple of occasions where you saw some pass rushing ability, and he just couldn't quite get to the quarterback.
No reason to believe, though, I mean, from what you've seen, because sometimes you can tell right away when a rookie just doesn't look like he has it. Harris looked like to me that, okay, I see the talent's there, so easily could see Harris with the light turning on this season, right?
Absolutely, no question about it.
Okay.
And it's interesting because Gase was asked about Harris during the spring practices, and I don't remember how the question was phrased, but Gase's reply was Harris is the last player I'm concerned about, or I worry about something along those lines. So. All
right, linebacker. Now, this is definitely a position that you need to keep an eye on. Alonso had I don't know, you tell me. It looked like he could have had a better season last season. McMillan went down with the injury. So they go out and they draft Baker. And, of course, he went to Ohio State just like McMillan. So that must be familiar. So talk about, and of course you got Anthony as well. Talk about this unit, and it's just all about mainly more than anything is keeping McMillan healthy.
That would be a big key. I mean, I know they were very high on him and what he was doing. In fact, he had moved into the starting lineup as a rookie second-round pick at some point in camp, and then covering a punt on his first play of the preseason, and boom, there goes his ACL. He's back to look good in the spring, did all the mental repping last year, even though he wasn't playing, so he's completely up to speed in terms of the defense. They have very high hopes for that guy. He definitely is going to be a key player at linebacker. So is Kiko Alonso. You mentioned, no, he didn't have as good a year last year as he did 2 years ago, his first year with the Dolphins, when he seemed to come up with a big play almost every other week, highlighted by that famous pick six against the Chargers to win that game. He was left. I will tell you this: the Dolphin coaches were very adamant. Sorry about all the noise here. There's some massive thunder going on here.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not picking up anything. That's okay.
Okay.
Oh, you mean you're in Florida? You're in South Florida, and there's a thunderstorm in the afternoon?
In the summer, shocking.
I'm shocked. Yes.
So Alonso was like on the receiving end a couple of times of highlights, or on the bad end of highlights involving tight ends, which was a major issue for the Dolphins last year, which played a role in them deciding to pick Minkah Fitzpatrick with the 11th overall spot. But Alonso had an okay season and wasn't nearly as good as it was 2 years ago, and that's the hope, is that he gets back to that.
Now the Dolphins played. They played a lot of two linebackers last year, right? Do you envision that that's how they're going to play this year?
Absolutely, no question about it, because they have a lot more depth in the secondary than they do at linebacker. I could see them playing in a nickel with Bobby McCain as your nickel corner. They could use three safeties. I mean, they have three starting caliber safeties. If you add in the Fitzpatrick to Rashad Jones and T.J. McDonald.
Yep.
And a lot of opponents, I mean, throw the ball a lot. So, I could see them playing with two linebackers an awful lot this year.
All right. And by the way, they also have, besides Baker, two other rookies, Poling, the draft pick, and Mike McCray. You know, Mike McCray, I'm a Michigan fan, so I know McCray very well. A lot of people thought he could have been a mid-round pick, and the Dolphins got him after the draft. So any particular reason why, anything that you heard of why he was available for nothing, and whether or not he can actually make the team?
I couldn't speak to why he didn't get drafted. It may have to do with his 40 time. I'm not sure. can he make the team? Absolutely, because here's the thing: is the Dolphins have a lot of numbers in terms of linebackers, but they also have a lot of youth.
Okay.
And they also have few guys with a lot of NFL experience. So you're looking at, I think, Alonzo and McMillan are the sure things. Beyond that, Chase Allen showed well last year as a rookie free agent from Southern Illinois. I think he's a pretty solid guy. After that, you got guys like Mike Hall, you mentioned, Poling, Stephon Anthony, Mike McCray. There's another rookie free agent, Kason Collins from North Carolina.
Okay.
So yeah, the opportunity is there for somebody to nab like that N. Baker in that fifth or sixth linebacker spot.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, obviously he'll need a big training camp performance, but it's not. For example, if you're like an undrafted rookie free agent or a first-year player at wide receiver, you're looking to come into training camp and going, holy moly, this is going to be tough. I think a linebacker might be a little easier for somebody to sneak in and grab a roster spot.
All right, and then finally in the secondary, Tankersley, who was the third-round pick last year. Howard was the second-round pick in 2016. But Bobby McCain seemed to play better than those two guys last year as a fifth-round pick in 2015.
Yeah, I might.
That's debatable.
He was more consistent than Tankersley. Well, I have to admit, I'm a member of maybe the charter member of the Zajon Howard fan club.
Okay.
He's got amazing ability. I watched him throughout training camp all of last year. Absolutely blankets the receivers. Then he started the year off pretty well. Then he went through a stretch of about 3 or 4 weeks where he had good coverage on a regular basis, but I was having issues finding the ball. So there were completions against him, and all of a sudden I'm reading that he's struggling, he's having a hard time, and all that. And I'm thinking, like, okay, just chill out. It's just it's just not. And then he breaks out with the back-to-back games with 2 picks against New England and Denver. No, I think that guy's going to be.
He'll be fine.
He's going to be more than fine. I mean, I'm expecting him to be in the Pro Bowl before too long.
So he's the best. He's clearly the best corner on the team then right now.
Well, having said that, Bobby McCain also had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really good. I like him too a lot. He plays a nickel, so he's not going to flash as much and have as many opportunities necessarily to make those one-on-one plays. But I like him a lot too. The Dolphins obviously like him a lot too. They just gave him a 4-year contract extension. The big question at cornerback is who starts opposite Howard, whether it's Tankersley or Tony Lippett, who's back after missing last year with an Achilles injury. He started, the number I think was 13 games maybe 2 years ago and led the team with 4 picks. Got a lot of range. Not quite as physical maybe as Tankersley is, but again, he's got the ball skills. He played wide receiver at Michigan State for most of his time there, so should have a nice battle going on over there to see who starts that spot.
And Fitzpatrick, he could pretty much play anywhere, so he's going to play a lot, isn't he? He's no matter where he plays, he's going to be on the field as much as the Dolphins can get him out there, right?
Oh, I hope so, because this was only spring practices, so there's only so much you really should take from those, but man, he looked the part. And then you combine that, and it's just not that, but the way he looked in the spring, tacked on to what he did at Alabama, what Nick Saban says about him, about how he basically, they called him Nick Saban's son at Alabama because he basically did everything the same way, and then they had apparently they do this personality test for incoming football players, basically to see the one makes them tick, and his score was the one that was closest to Nick Saban's. He's just like a complete gym rat who's all about football, and the Dolphin coaches and talking about him in the spring were like, just as advertised. I mean, he is some kind of serious about his business, and he's a great athlete on top of it. I mean, I think that was a great pick. There was a lot of rumblings the Dolphins might go for a quarterback in that draft, and I think they came out great with Fitzpatrick.
Do you think that part of it also is because of the fact that with Fitzpatrick there, I mean, that things could have been different. But when you got Fitzpatrick there, I mean, come on. I mean, Fitzpatrick could have gone in the top 5 and maybe deserved to go in the top 5. He was so good. So it's almost like you couldn't pass up that opportunity.
Correct. I mean, especially once the top 4 quarterbacks were gone.
Sure.
Had one of the quarterbacks been there at 11, would they have maybe thought about it and hesitated? Maybe, but once those four are gone and Fitzpatrick's sitting there, it's a complete no-brainer.
Cornell Armstrong is a rookie pick. He's added to the list with the depth it looks like the Dolphins have. Maybe he's a practice squad guy, as will probably possibly be Jalen Davis, who I like, by the way. I think Jalen Davis might be able to stick as a practice squad candidate. I think that was a pretty good pickup. And so it looks like the Dolphins have maybe an underrated secondary. Like you mentioned, you think they have an underrated offensive line as well. And if that's the case, then the Dolphins might be a heck of a lot better than people think.
If they get good quarterback play, I mean, that was the thing that killed them last year. I mean, the quarterback play was so poor, they wound up being down in a lot of games quickly. It put so much pressure on everything else on the team. And if you go back to Tannehill in December 2016, at the time he got hurt, his last 5 games, his passer rating was 100.2. I mean, that's Pro Bowl stuff. And now
sure.
I'm not saying that he needs to be 100.2, but if he plays the way he played in 2016, which remember was his first year under Gase.
Yep.
Now it's his 3rd year under Gase, because last year, even though he was hurt, he was with the team pretty much the whole year, absorbing more and more knowledge, getting more and more familiar, and so the knowledge of the offense should be tip-top. He looks good physically. You get a good year out of him. Again, this is a team that I know the outside expectations are very, very low for that team, but I think they're a lot better than people think they are.
And by the way, the special teams, that they seemed to play well on special teams last year. They add the rookie kickers, though, now, and you never know what's going to happen there when you got rookie kickers going into training camp and preseason. But there's a long way to go, just in case, if you need to pick up a veteran. But and then you had a rookie punter last year that did okay, right, considering he was a rookie.
Yeah, they're very high on Matt Hawk, who had his moments. I mean, he was inconsistent, as happens with a lot of rookie punters, but they really, really high on him. The fact he's a lefty also is nice, because it's a different spin for opposing returners to have to deal with. And as you mentioned, the kicker is a major question mark. We won't know, until the regular season starts. And it's interesting because everybody talks about Sue, Pouncey, and Landry as being big losses. It may turn out to be that Cody Parkey was a significant loss as well. Or maybe even more significant, because he was so good for them last year.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But then again, it always seems like there's at least a couple of teams that go into training camp with this type of situation at plays kicker, and then it doesn't work out, and they bring in a veteran. So we got a long way to go to figure that out. But when you're
and the other interesting there too is as the special teams coach Darren Rizzi mentioned. You look at a lot of the big-name kickers around the NFL, and you look at their college stats, and their college stats in terms of field goal accuracy, not necessarily that great. So you look at the Dolphins' 7th-round pick, Jason Sanders. I believe his numbers was 25 of 35 at New Mexico, which isn't great.
No.
But you get to the NFL, and that doesn't correlate.
Sure.
What I can tell you from watching him in the spring is that ball jumps off his foot. And the same goes for the rookie free agent, Greg Joseph.
Yeah, because you could flip that around, too. We've seen these draft picks, early draft picks, guy can't miss, and, he can miss. You translate it to the NFL, and just because you have a great college career doesn't mean you're going to do anything in the NFL. So it's like a goalie. It's like a hockey goalie. You just don't know from season to season, or, a draft pick that looks real good. It's a very weird position. And it's you just find yourself very fortunate when you can get one, especially if you find out that you can get one when they're young. You get a hold of one really young. That's huge for an organization.
And that's why you don't spend a 2nd-round pick on a kicker.
That's right. I'm sure the Tampa Bay Buccaneers learned their lesson.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Great job, Alan. I appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you again at some point during the season, and especially after really a tough season, not only for fans, but to cover the team. I know it's not easy as well, and you got to be around a team that things are going wrong, but sounds like there's a lot of optimism for a rebound season, and that's what's great about the NFL. 1 year to the next, things can change. So I expect the Dolphins to be better than people think, and just talking to you, that solidifies that. So, but we'll see if Tannehill can stay healthy, and we'll talk more about that later on when we get a chance to speak again.
Sounds good. Yeah, I do think they will be better. And again, if you focus your attention so much on the big names that they lost, they also made a lot of good acquisitions to create a much more balanced and deeper roster than they had last year.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes people look too much at the names and they don't realize. I mean, look, as a Jet fan, I know from a couple years ago, they signed all those veteran guys, and everybody was thinking that's better for them, and the Jets found out it wasn't. It was better to get rid of all those guys. And when they got rid of everybody thought they were going to be winless last season, and they were better. So sometimes you clean out that locker room, and it really helps, and you can get the team more closely bonded, and I'm sure the Dolphins know what they're doing, and that's why those guys are gone. So we'll see. We'll see if it all works out for the Dolphins. And but like you said, and we all know at the quarterback position in the NFL is everything.
Yep.
Thanks, Alan.
No
I appreciate it.
that.
Thanks for those sound effects as well. Everybody knows that you're calling from Miami, so we needed to do that. But that was for real, so I appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good, Greg.
Thanks, Alan. All right. Alan Pupar from Dolphins.com. And look forward to talking to him again, especially if the Dolphins are better. And look, the AFC East, I know with the Patriots there, everybody is going to pick the Patriots, and why shouldn't you? But just imagine if the Patriots actually did stumble a bit without losing Brady. Somebody's going to benefit. And I don't think it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. But then again, I guess you never know. A.J. McCarron, who knows, right? We'll talk about the Bills at some point. Jets? I don't know. Maybe the Dolphins. But we've got a long way to go before we can figure all that stuff out. And that's why it was good to talk to Alan and get his take on what's going on down here in Miami with the Dolphins. We'll be back tomorrow with more training camp coverage here on the Our Football Network as we talk Pittsburgh Steelers football with Jeff Hartman, editor for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And don't forget to order a subscription of your choosing, including the 2018 Our-Lads NFL Draft Review Guide right here at ourlads.com, and it's available right now. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN and receive our on-demand media alerts for every OFN show and interview, including this one. And thanks for listening to this edition of the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma on the Our-Lads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the start of the 2018 football season.